Welcome again to our interaction on elementary quantum mechanics. Today, I wish to take up consequences of quantum mechanical nature of microscopic world, wherein I wish to take up wave particle duality and uncertainty principle. Before we start on that, let's recall what we have done so far. What we have done so far is that we discussed the premise of classical mechanics and its success in explaining macroscopic phenomena. Thereafter, we demonstrated in a way that the inadequacy of classical mechanics in explaining the results of number of experiments like black body radiations and things like that. And then we established the need for a theory that can explain the results of such experiments. And thereafter, we took up the concept of quantization as proposed by Max Planck and discussed its success in explaining the results of the experiments which were not explained by classical mechanics. And lastly, we showed that the concepts of quantization of energy and radiation could explain the macroscopic phenomenon that could not be explained by classical mechanics. So, in this process, we realized that the concept of quantization has become acceptable, but this in no ways makes classical mechanics less significant. What we now realize is that the two are for different areas of applicability. What it means is that the classical mechanics works for macroscopic world, whereas the quantum mechanics is for the microscopic domain. So, that is a kind of differentiation we have for us. Now, with that as the background, let's move further today. For today's this thing, as I told earlier, I just mentioned earlier, I wish to take up two consequences of quantum mechanical nature, and they happen to be the wave particle duality, wherein I wish to take up the nature of radiation or light and the nature of electron, and then thereafter we will talk about the uncertainty principle. Now, let us understand what do we mean by when we say wave particle duality, and as I just mentioned, we will talk about the nature of radiation to begin with. When we talk about the nature of radiation, the issue comes is that whether it is particulate or it is wave like. So, that is a kind of scenario we want to dwell on. And what we see is, if we want to really establish what exactly is the nature of radiation, we need to understand what exactly is a particle behavior. Let us have a look at the particle behavior first. What we know is, suppose I throw a pebble, a stone into water, what will happen is it will slow down and thereafter it will just go down in a curved path to the bottom of the water. On the contrary, if I allow some light to pass through, travel to the interface of air and water, what you find is that when it goes from air to water, it gets refracted. In the process, what it means is that it gets slowed down and bends towards the towards inwards. Okay. So, what we find is that this behavior is different from what we have in case of particle. Let us take another case. Now, so let us talk about the wave behavior and particle behavior through a slit. Let us take this. So, what we do is, now suppose I take some wave coming from a long distance. If it comes from a long distance, it becomes parallel. Okay. So, when that wave gets through a slit, what you find is that this wave gets diffracted. This you can see even on a water surface also, you can create waves and you put some kind of obstruction, we find that wave turns around. So, this is a typical phenomenon what we call as diffraction, that is bending around the corners. On the other hand, if I take a particle beam, so what I will observe is that if I have a slit and pass particle beam, it will just go straight, there will not be any bending of any kind. So, that is again drastically different from the wave behavior. Now, having learned about the behavior of a particle and a wave, let us now try to go back in time and see what all has been said about the nature of light or the radiation. One of the earliest attempts was by Newton in terms of the very famous corpuscular theory of light, according to which light is essentially a stream of particles. Particles means corpusculars means particles. Okay. So, essentially light is travelling in terms of the particles of light are moving through. That is what was proposed by Newton. About 2 centuries later, a very famous experiment by Thomas Young, what is known as the interference phenomenon. What he did was, he passed waves through two narrow slits in the, separated by a distance. What he observed was that this led to a series of dark and bright patterns over there, and this what is called as the interference was kind of a characteristic of a wave behavior. So, what it meant was that light is having a wave character, and this kind of a pattern what we got was because the waves when they are in phase they will add up and give you a bright spot, and the ones which when they are out of phase they will cancel each other and give you a dark spot. So, that is how this interference pattern was explained. So, what basically we call out from here is that according to Thomas Young, light has a wave character, where Newton said it has a particulate nature. Going further, we have in one of the earlier sessions with us, we learnt about photoelectric effect, and you would recall that to explain the experimental observations of the photoelectric effect, Einstein had to invoke the particle nature of radiation to explain the experimental observations, because in the absence of if you look into the classical way of looking at it, that is in terms of wave, we cannot explain the photoelectric effect. So, we had Einstein had to invoke the particulate nature of light and explain the observations there. Thereafter, you would also recall another experiment we did discuss earlier was on the Compton effect, basically scattering of photon by electron. What happens is if a photon strikes an electron, it gets diffracted, it gets scattered, that means you get a photon of a different wavelength, and this again could be explained only by assuming that light has got particle nature. So, what do we conclude from all this? We conclude that light has got dual nature, that means sometimes it behaves like particle, sometimes it behaves like wave. So, what exactly is the nature of it? We are not in a position to really comment on the true nature of it, and probably it is very pertinent to recall Einstein's view on this. I will just read it for you. That is, there are therefore now two theories of light, both indispensable, and as one must admit today, in spite of 20 years of tremendous effort on the part of theoretical physicists without any logical connections. That means, even at the time of Einstein and till today, we do not find any logical connection between the wave behavior and the particle behavior, and what we conclude is that light shows both kind of behaviors, that will depend on what kind of interaction are we going through. More about it as we proceed further. Now, let us take up the second case, the nature of electrons which are perceived to be particles. Let us see what kind of observations do we have. You would recall that one of the earliest observations, early 20th century, that is 1901 or 1899 and all, it was shown by J. J. Thomson that electrons have got particle nature. You will remember that discovery of electrons, cathode rays and things like that. So, they established that electron to be particulate in nature. Thereafter, again you will recall from your earlier information content on chemistry and physics, basic physics and chemistry, that what was proposed by de Broglie, that what he did was he generalized. He said that the dual nature what we just discussed about for light is, he argued that this can be generalized and could be extended to the particles, and what he proposed was that he postulated that ordinary matter, that typically electron, proton, neutron, etc., can have wave-like properties, having a wavelength which is lambda, that is related to the momentum in the same way as we have in case of light. And he gave the following formula, that lambda is equal to h by p, where h is the Planck's constant and p is the momentum of the particle we are talking about. What it meant was, from this argument we expect that the moving electron has an associated wave with it. Okay. So, if that be so, if that is true, what we expect is matter, that is, say let us take the example of electron, should show the phenomenon of diffraction and interference. We just saw about some time back that diffraction and interference are characteristics of wave behavior. So, since de Broglie proposed that electron or matter should have wave character, so it must demonstrate this by showing diffraction and interference phenomena. And the same was actually established by G. P. Thomson and Davison about a few years later, and what we did was they took a beam of electrons and made it fall on nickel crystals, and then they showed that they underwent diffraction, which is typical because we all are familiar with X-ray diffraction. That means when X-rays fall on any crystal, they get diffracted. So, that is a typical experiment everybody knows of. So, with this kind of an diffraction behavior, diffraction pattern given by electron beam with a nickel crystal, they established or confirmed the wave character of electron. Okay. Now, there is a very interesting observation here. You recall that this person, G. P. Thomson, happens to be son of J. J. Thomson. J. J. Thomson got Nobel Prize for showing that electron has got particle nature. We just mentioned about that. And the son, G. P. Thomson, showed that electron has got wave character and also got a Nobel Prize for that. It is a very interesting and very significant kind of an observation we have about the father son duo. Okay, continuing with us. So, continuing with the same thing, I am going to share with you a picture which shows on the left it is a X-ray diffraction pattern, and on the right there is a electron diffraction pattern from aluminum. Aluminum is a nice crystalline material. Now, if it is a metallic crystal. So, when you have that, we find that the similarity in the nature confirms, establishes that electron has got wave character. Let us have further evidence on this, because what I am trying to convey here is that electron or microscopic particles which are perceived to be particles do have wave character. Let us have more evidence on this. What people did, this is a more recent experiment, that is they passed a stream of particles through a pair of slits, and this picture shows what do we expect here. What do we expect? You will recall from our characteristic particle behavior that if I pass a stream of particles through slits, they will just move straight and then strike on the wall, and what you should get is bright spots on that. That is all. That means, if I am talking about electrons as particle, if they pass through the slits, they will hit that photographic plate towards the end of it, and they should give some kind of bright spots over there. That is basically what we expect. And what people observed actually was this. What was observed was when electron made to pass through two slits put separated by small distance, what they found was that they gave some a pattern which is interference pattern similar to what we got in case of Young's experiment. So, what does it mean? What does it mean is that this kind of further establishes the wave character of electron. That means, we got ample evidence now to suggest that electrons have got wave character, which in turn means that the microscopic particles like electrons also show dual nature, because particular behavior we are very familiar with. So, now we have established that they also have got wave character. So, which in turn means that they are also showing dual nature. What does it mean? So far what we discussed is that light, which is typically perceived to be wave, does show particulate behavior. In turn, we can ascribe some kind of a wave particle duality to light. Similarly, the electron, which is typically perceived to be a particle, also has shown wave character, which in turn means they also have got wave particle duality. They also ascribe to the dual nature of the matter. Okay. Having done this, let us now just look at what Bohr said on this, the wave particle duality. What Bohr said was, the wave and particle views of an object exclude each other totally, but both are needed in order to fully understand the properties of the object. That means, both you cannot say that this is going to be wave only or particle only. So, the duality is there to stay, it is there to stay. Let us have some more emphasizing comments. Paul Davies very recently, about a few years back, wrote a book on unified theory of everything, wherein he writes as follows. He says that the idea that something can be both a wave and a particle defies imagination, because what we perceive is in macroscopic world. What it says is the existence of wave particle duality is not in doubt, because there is ample experimental evidence to show that wave particle duality does exist. Further, he says it is impossible to visualize a wave particle, because you cannot visualize anything in microscopic domain which is a wave as well as particle. So, he suggests not to try on that. And thirdly, he says notion of a particle being everywhere at once is impossible to imagine. What it means is, typically we know that waves exist simultaneously, whereas particles are localized. So, if we are talking about a wave particle duality, what we expect is the particle to be everywhere at once. So, this is impossible to imagine. That is what he has put forth. That is a very recent kind of documentation we have on the wave particle duality. Okay. Now, let us take up the second consequence of the quantum mechanical nature of microscopic world, and that is the uncertainty principle. I am sure that you all have come across Heisenberg's statement, a very kind of categorical and very pertinent statement that it is impossible to simultaneously determine the position and momentum of an object with certainty. That is what we all know as the uncertainty principle. Let us try to argue out where does this principle come from. Now, let us go back to our classical mechanics. We know that the classical mechanics is deterministic. What it means is, that is, if I know the position and speeds of all particles in the universe with sufficient accuracy at a given instant of time, then according to classical mechanics, in principle it is possible to predict the motion of every particle at any time in the future or maybe in the past also. We can say, okay, this could have been like this. So, this is what is meant by deterministic nature of classical mechanics. Now, let us say in case of classical mechanics, what happens in case of an act of a measurement? Suppose I want to measure something. What has to happen is that in order to measure any property of a particle, we need to interact with it. Suppose I want to measure what is the distance from here to here, I need to do something on that, I have to interact with this, then only I can make the measurement here. Or suppose I want to weigh something, I have to interact. So, interaction is a must for any act of measurement. And what we are going to now observe here is that if I am trying to make a measurement on a microscopic particle, what we find is that this act of measurement causes some kind of uncertainty into the result of the measurement. Now, suppose I am weighing something in the macroscopic world, suppose I am talking about, suppose I want to take a book and weigh it, I can be very sure about what is the weight of this one. On the other hand, if I am trying to do the same kind of a thing for a microscopic particle, I may not be that sure. Okay. And that means what it amounts to saying is that if in the domain of microscopic particles, one can never measure all the properties of a microscopic particle exactly. That is what is basically going to lead us to the so called uncertainty principle. Let us take an example. Now, suppose we want to measure the position and momentum of an electron. What do we need to do is basically to see something. How do I see something is some light is coming, falling on the matter, and from there it is getting reflected and coming onto my eyes, and then something is happening to the whole chemistry of vision is involved in that. Okay. Now, to make an observation where exactly is the position of an electron, what I have to do is I have to throw some light on that. Okay. And then light will interact, or that means they will interact with the electron, and then it will get scattered and come back to my eyes, and then how do I see that? Now, if I am doing that, what I find is if I want to be sure about a position, so what do I do? Suppose I know that electron is a very small particle, and suppose I am trying to use a large wavelength. So, it is a light of a large wavelength. What will happen? The wavelength is coming, it is coming here, it is coming here. So, what we can say is it is somewhere in between this domain. That means, if my wavelength is very large, then my particle is small. So, there is a lot of uncertainty. I can be my electron, suppose it is here, but when I am measuring, it can be anywhere in between this particular the wavelength part of it. So, I am not very sure about the position of it. So, what do I do? What do I do is I make the wavelength shorter and shorter. So, when I make the wavelength shorter and shorter, if I suppose the electron is right here and my wavelength is very small, it will come and interact with this, or maybe I am sure about the position of electron. But that means when I am trying to use a wavelength which is very short, what will happen is this short wavelength will have lot of energy in it, because we know that the energy of a photon is proportional inversely to the wavelength of the light. Okay. So, E is proportional to 1 by lambda. Okay. So, if wavelength goes less, energy becomes large. When the photon comes and strikes the electron with large amount of energy, what happens is this impacts the position of electron and changes its momentum. So, momentum becomes totally uncertain to us. So, I am able to locate, okay, so I know the electron is here, but I do not know what is the momentum that one. Okay. That means, in the process of being able to locate the position of electron, I have lost the information on the momentum of the electron. Thus, when I am using light with a short wavelength, the position I can determine accurately, but the momentum becomes inaccurate. On the other hand, if I am using long wavelength light, then my momentum I can determine precisely or fairly well, but my position becomes inaccurate. So, there is some kind of a inherent uncertainty in that. So, these two observations are basically put together in what is the famous expression of your Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which reads as the delta x, which is uncertainty in position, multiplied by delta p, that is uncertainty in the momentum, is greater than or equal to h by 4 pi. That is the equation we all are familiar with. What it means is, the more accurately we know the position, the less accurately we know the momentum and vice versa. So, we have equivalent expressions for energy and time also, which we will be using when we talk about spectroscopy at a later stage. So, this is a graphical representation of the same mathematical expression. So, what you find is that on this y axis I have got delta p x, that means the uncertainty in the momentum, on x axis I have got uncertainty in position. So, you find that, so if my position is uncertain to a large extent, momentum can be very, the uncertainty in momentum is less. As my position becomes less and less uncertain, my momentum becomes more and more uncertain. So, that is how it goes. So, this is an allowed region and this is never possible there. Okay. So, that is a graphical representation of the mathematical expression for Heisenberg's principle. Now, what is the implication of what we just discussed? The implication of Heisenberg's principle is that according to this, we cannot talk about a definite path of electron, because we are talking about that when I am trying to locate the position of electron, I am not sure about the momentum. That means, which in turn means is that I cannot precisely determine the position of electron. Okay. What it means is that this is the kind of a visualization we have about the path or the trajectory of electron in an atom according to Bohr in an orbit. But what Heisenberg says is, we cannot be sure about that this is taking this path, we can only talk about the probabilities. It is likely to be following this path, but there is some kind of an inherent error in that. So, that is the implication of it, that is we cannot talk about, that means the Bohr's model is at stake. We will just come to that. What it means is, we can only talk about the probabilities of finding electron and its momentum, and not certainties about the two things. So, in the light of what we just discussed, the wave particle duality and the uncertainty principle, let us try to revisit Bohr's model. What we find is that Bohr model does not consider wave character of electron, which has been proposed by de Broglie and established by Thomson and Germer. And secondly, Bohr's model proposes definite path with well defined position and velocities, which is in contravention or contradiction with what has been proposed by Heisenberg. And what you find is, on these two counts, our Bohr's model is inadequate, something is amiss in that. So, what we need is a model that considers the wave nature of electron and also accounts for the uncertainty principle, and that model we will take up in the next session. Okay. Let us quickly recall what we have done today. What we have done today is, we argued and established the wave particle duality of radiation, that is light, and matter, that is electron. Thereafter, we demonstrated the impossibility of simultaneous and accurate determination of position and momentum of a microscopic particle. The moment you go to microscopic domain, things become uncertain. And then thereafter, as a consequence of these two things, we showed that the Bohr's model happens to be inadequate, and we need a new model for atom, and that model we will take up in the next session. Thank you.